Hello and welcome to History in 7 Facts, a show in which we talk about some awesome episodes from humanity's past. Check out this playlist to watch the entire series, and please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. It's the year 1770. It's been 2 years since the British ship Endeavour sailed from Plymouth in southern England. During this time, she rounded Cape Horn in Southern America and continued westward across the Pacific. The crew, led by Lieutenant James Cook, made observations of the transit of planet Venus. Once they made their observations, Cook opened the sealed orders, which were additional instructions from the Admiralty for the second part of his voyage, to search the South Pacific for signs of the hypothetical rich southern continent of Terra Australis. But while sailing toward what was known as Van Diemen's Land, today's Tasmania, a storm blew them off course to a small gulf in the northwest. On April 19, 1770, Cook and his expedition became the first recorded Europeans to have encountered the eastern coastline of Australia. Because of this, there is the common misconception that he discovered the southern continent, but in fact that is not true. Cook's mission to make observations of the planet Venus was in fact a secondary mission. His main job, to chart the southern continent, was the primary goal of the British government. He and his crew were supposed to create maps and leave signs and markings on the mainland so that the Empire could claim these lands with ease. The world had plenty of reasons to believe that somewhere south of New Guinea there's a vast continent. Why? Dutch explorers of the Dutch East India Company already found and claimed parts of a dry land in the south. Cook followed his orders and mapped the east coast of Australia, which he called New South Wales. He regularly went ashore to plant beacons and markings that proved the presence of the British authorities on these lands. Cook's landings marked the beginning of Britain's interest in Australia and in the eventual colonization of this new southern continent. But Cook wasn't the first. Older maps suggest that previous sailors encountered Australia centuries before him. In 2002, historian Gavin Menzies claimed that the first European explorers mapped Australia by using older, already existing maps. He was convinced that these older maps came from the Chinese, the only regional nation capable of sending ships on such voyages. Menzies discovered a map from 1542, created by Jean Roth, who worked for King Henry VIII of England. On this map, there's a piece of land called La Grande Jave, or Greater Java. Menzies claims that despite the inaccuracy of the maps, such as the disproportionate representation of distances, he can trace parts of Australia on this map. And indeed, there are some similarities that suggest that the map shows parts of Australia. By the time James Cook reached Australia, European explorers already knew the location of many Pacific islands. During the 16th and 17th centuries, Portuguese, Dutch and Spanish sailors were navigating their way through the southern lands. It was at this time they mapped New Guinea and the Java Islands, which gave rise to the idea that a southern continent spanning from the East Indies all the way to South America must be down there somewhere. This hypothetical continent was known as Terra Incognita or Terra Australis, the southern land. The existence of such a continent was very appealing to the European powers, who were seeking to further expand their colonial empires that already brought in huge amounts of wealth. The first European ship that we know of that encountered Australia was Duifken, a Dutch bark. In 1606, during a voyage of discovery from Bantam, Java, Captain Willem Janszoon encountered the Australian mainland. Janszoon is thus credited with the first authenticated European discovery of Australia. In 1605, the Dutch East India Company sent the Duifken, captained by Willem Janszoon, to search for trade opportunities in the South and East lands, beyond the furthest reaches of the known world. He found Australia's Cape York Peninsula and landed at the Penfather River. This was almost 200 years before Cook reached the eastern coast of Australia. In 1616, the Eendracht sailed towards Java using a new route. The captain, Dirk Hartog, hoped that the strong winds of the southern oceans will speed up his ship. But the Eendracht ventured from its route and ended up on the west coast of Australia. The crew explored some of the uninhabited islands, but never ventured deep into the mainland. Before they departed, they left behind a plate mentioning their name and route, and thus recording the second ever landfall by a European on Australian soil. The plate was found 80 years later and is now on display at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. So you see, there were quite a few European encounters of Australia before James Cook's discovery. But it seems that nobody realized what they had actually found. But according to Professor Menzies and other historians, these encounters are only a part of the story. They believe that the Portuguese, Dutch and British expeditions managed to cross both the Atlantic and the Pacific, and thus discovering the New World and Australia with the help of much older Chinese maps. There are a few hints that the Chinese indeed knew about Australia long before the Europeans. In the recorded history of the Sui dynasty from the 6th century AD, the existence of a southern land, some 100 days away, is noted. In this chronicle, there is a description of a jumping animal, the Shan Lai Jing, which had two deer-like heads, one at the top, one in the middle of its body. A mythical creature, or a kangaroo with a baby in its pouch. I hope this video was interesting enough to have inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe. You can leave your comments downstairs, and you can also check out my Patreon page if you want to support me. The link is in the description. I hope to see you next time. Bye.